I always wondered about this movie. Why does it have that specific title, Romy and Michele's high school reunion? Who the fuck are Romy and Michele? Are they cartoon characters, and now this is them in live action for the first time?
Right, like is this a children's book series?
Is this from the Riverdale universe? Like what's going on here? Well, the answer to that is it's a good title. I mean, you're not going to forget it.
I think it's funny. Yeah, I always liked it. It reminded me of Tu Wong Fu, Thanks for Everything, Julia Newmar. What the hell is that? But I never forgot it.
Yes. I only just heard of that movie like 2 days ago.
Oh, weird.
What a coincidence.
Oh, my God.
Life is weird sometimes. But
I know.
The answer is these characters do predate this film by a decade, basically. And we'll talk about their history. This is a very interesting movie history to get into. Usually we start by talking about the director.
I got to say that this is a surprise. This seemed like the most empty, in the moment kind of, it felt like the Female Night at the Roxbury, which is just an SNL skit, it's just very much culturally, let's make this right now. But I guess you change the clothes and it could have been made at any time.
It does seem very stuck in time. There's a sort of 90s slacker, hero who kind of existed. But all right, so Robin Schiff is the name of the writer of this movie. She's basically been working in TV comedy forever, but in the 80s, she was a member of the Groundlings Theater in Los Angeles alongside Lisa Kudrow. She wrote the movie Loverboy from 1989, which you said you like.
Yeah, early Patrick Dempsey.
Recently, she worked on Emily in Paris, which was a big hit for Netflix, but she wrote this play called Ladies' Room that was produced in LA, and I think it had a run in New York too. And the idea of the play was it was all set in the ladies' room of a nightclub, and they wouldn't change the sets, and the characters would leave the bathroom and then come back in and like discuss what was going on.
That's brilliant.
Off stage.
Do guys do the same thing in men's rooms in a place like this where they kind of download everything that just happened and what they want to happen?
The cliche is that they don't.
But that's what I'm asking.
But I wouldn't know because I didn't. I certainly never did that.
I've
also never
get in and get out kind of guy.
I've also
don't look at my penis.
I don't like to talk. I don't like to go places. I don't like to go to the bathroom. I don't want any of it.
I'm not going to pee.
That's a no for all of it.
Right.
Well, okay. So the idea was you have like your major characters who the play is about. When they're off stage, these two empty airheads would come in. And Robin Schiff said, they're the Rosencrantz and Guildenstern of my play. At first, they didn't have names. They were Airhead 1 and Airhead 2, but they eventually were named Romy and Michele. And Michele was played by Lisa Kudrow. Romy was played by a woman named Christie Mellor. And these two characters were basically the biggest hit. They were everybody's favorite part of the play. People were like, more of these guys, please. So they got their own TV show, or I should say a pilot. They got a pilot called Just Temporary, in which Romy and Michele played temp workers. Yeah.
This is we're looking at a GIF of the credits.
Opening credits, they're amazing.
It is as 90s as the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. It's remarkable. Or like right on the cut. It feels
this
cusp.
was 89, I believe. But that's fonts,
exactly.
Yeah. She's eating a donut.
The amount of jewelry on her wrist.
This pilot didn't go anywhere. It wasn't picked up. I don't think you can watch it anywhere. Like, you can just see the opening credits. And Lisa Kudrow said she remembered it as being not good.
Okay.
But Robin Schiff wrote the pilot. She brought Lisa Kudrow and Christie Mellor with her. And then she said she wanted to make a movie out of these characters. So she was wondering, what should they do? Romy and Michele go to the moon, go to Japan, go to college, and then eventually settled on a reunion. So yeah, she writes the script for Romy and Michele's high school reunion, gets picked up, gets optioned by Touchstone Pictures, which was Disney's live action feature film division for adults at the time. And it kind of didn't go anywhere for a while, but the people, and there's a very good oral history of Romy and Michele that was published by Vogue last year. It was very helpful, highly recommended to everybody who's interested.
Why last year?
I don't know.
Is that because Mira Sorvino's having a
25th anniversary.
25th anniversary, okay.
Yeah. And why Vogue? Or I was like, why? I don't usually read the oral histories in this, and this is very good, but then there's a giant chunk section on fashion. I was like, oh, right.
Right, well, yeah.
Skip. Because I'm just a guy,
You're just a guy. Why aren't there songs like that?
in the world, because that's all of rock music. Am I right?
So you have a note here that says that the success of Clueless.
Yeah. So basically, a big hit movie directed by a woman, targeted at teenage girls and young women, and it's a big hit. And it's kind of like the people who made Romy and Michele credit Clueless for being what gave Disney the courage to go ahead with Romy and Michele.
Mm-hmm. And that's interesting because, well, I thought maybe there was a connection with who did the costuming or something because.
Yep.
Oh, okay. I didn't. Well, that and I would also believe that maybe in Heartbreakers they might have done it there too, because this is Romy and Michele fall into the category of eye candy for me, which would have been the clothes. They change clothes in every scene, and they have endless access to clothes. Those are the two things that make it eye candy. It's a stupid word for what. There's a better term, but it would have been very just aspiring, just to either you have endless money or you have endless ability to make clothes. And so that would be Clueless, Jawbreaker, Heartbreakers, and Romy and Michele. Anyway, I love the clothes.
That they hired the same costume person from Clueless. Please, everybody, just go read that Vogue feature. I kind of glazed over. These are things
anytime it said shirt, you just went, nope.
Nope. Yes. No, I don't
TRD.
like it about myself because this is a very important part of filmmaking. It's just as important as, the writing. And
It
all
marks
that
the
stuff.
period,
Yes.
right?
And I miss things like what clothes signify about characters.
Oh, wow.
I even miss stuff about set decoration and color schemes of of the sets and stuff. And they said they relied on very bright colors for this movie, just in terms of the setting.
Well, then that's why you miss the class element of that they are aspiring to be in a certain kind of echelon of people in LA. Mm-hmm. And that because all their clothes signify that. Lisa Kudrow's character even makes, if you know fashion, you know that she is making versions of things that are very expensive, like Versace. And so they are trying to signal that they are in a certain class already, but they're not. She's making the clothes.
Mm-hmm. No, I knew that. Robin Schiff said that. Well, I knew
Wait,
that.
you knew it because you read it?
I knew that she makes clothes. I knew that.
You knew that Michele makes clothes?
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's not the point I'm making. I'm saying that is proof that she is trying to signal that she is in a different class or already in society in a way that she's not, because she's choosing to look like she has bought those clothes.
Maybe, but this is a problem with 90s movies is it otherwise has a total absence of class consciousness. It has these two women who have half a job between them and they live in a palatial apartment in Los Angeles.
I think they try to make that apartment look shit. It's just that it's on Venice Beach, so it's like, of course
pretty big
it's
and
expensive.
nice.
Right.
Okay, well, they meet the producer of this movie and Robin Schiff, the writer, meet with Amy Heckerling, who directed Clueless, because they wanted her to direct this movie, and they said it just didn't totally click. So they instead hook up with this man, David Mirkin. Now, who is David Mirkin? Well, stand-up comedian in the 80s, and then basically became a very, very powerful television writer and producer. He was the showrunner of Newhart in the 80s. Mm-hmm. He was pretty young to be doing that. James L. Brooks is a big mentor for him, and he worked on the Tracy Ullman Show, and then he created Get a Life with Chris Elliott. Did you ever see that?
I did. Is that the Simpsons connection because of the Tracy Ullman Show?
Yeah, well, yes, and James he wrote he ran Newhart for the Mary Tyler Moore Company, and that's not James L. Brooks' company, but James L. Brooks is in that world because he worked on Mary Tyler Moore.
But that is where the Simpsons came from, though, right? I'm not misremembering
from the Tracy Ullman Show. Yeah, so they wanted Mirkin to move over to the Simpsons when the Simpsons became a series, but he was working on Get a Life, so instead he came aboard for seasons 5 and 6, and this is what he's best known for: is he was the showrunner for seasons 5 and 6 of The Simpsons, and that means he was responsible for the 2 greatest television seasons of all time.
Really?
Oh yeah. I mean, I think season 6 is easily the best season of The Simpsons. Season 5 I'd put season 5 and season 7 neck and neck for number 2 for the
Okay.
second best season of The Simpsons.
Then season 8 must be good too, because you said they go in pairs for showrunners,
Season
right?
8 is excellent. It is a step down from season 7.
Okay.
I can rank them for you.
I feel warned.
6, 5, 7, 3, 8, 4.
5, 6, 7, 8. That was amazing, love.
Thank you. Well, I think about this a lot.
I know you do.
So his seasons of the show marked a shift toward much more absurd, much less grounded in reality. Famously, Deep Space Homer is early in his run,
You couldn't be less grounded.
and fans of that was very controversial for fans of the show. That like breaks the reality of the show. Homer can go to space. What is the point of even having episodes after that? He's just a normal guy. Now my counter to that is a few episodes earlier, the earlier showrunner did an episode where he turns out was a Grammy-winning, super successful musical artist.
I don't remember that one. That's
His barbershop quartet.
Oh, yeah.
But he's a very funny guy. He's in. I've heard him a billion times because I listened to the Simpsons DVD commentaries over and over again. But he has a very mean spirited sort of sense of humor, which was also controversial among the fans. Like, make this a nicer show.
Wow.
Season 7 and 8 do kind of shift back to being more grounded, more centered on the Simpsons family. Okay, he left the Simpsons to direct this movie. And after that, he only directed one other feature film, and it was Heartbreakers, which you like.
Another load-bearing beam. Yes, more eye candy.
Gene Hackman and Sigourney Weaver. I need to see this movie. So I was knowing about David Mirkin's, this was the movie he left The Simpsons to make. I've always been curious about this movie, and also just curious, like, what's he like as a director? Because he'd never directed before. He was a writer, and when you're the showrunner of The Simpsons, what that means is you're basically the creative head of that season. You are the head writer, and crucially for him, he directed the voice actors, and they had also just tons of guest actors like Meryl Streep and Michelle Pfeiffer, who he sits down and works very closely with. But what's he like as a visual stylist? Well, a lot of times, first time directors have a knack for like trying every trick they've ever wanted to try, making things unnecessarily fancy because now they can. And it seems like the studio wasn't happy with that. And it's like, what do they care if there's like fancy tracking shots? And studios are like, we just want this to look like a simple, well-lit sitcom, basically, for all the idiots out there.
Well, I assume wanting to get interesting shots and to get them in a way that it hasn't been done before, you need to rig up stuff, and it costs more money and time, no?
Oh, certainly. But after it's done, so I didn't know this. There's a lot of drama with this movie in battles between the director and the writer in the studio.
Okay.
And they weren't happy with this after he turned it in. After he turns in the edit, they're like, what's with all these fucking tracking shots? Why does the yearbook then like swoop out and morph into the real?
Do they call it the Mirkin now? The Mirkin effect? Do you get to name it after yourself if you invent it?
Well, he didn't invent it,
Okay.
but it is just sort of, it is a cliche about first-time directors, and he
you.
did it based on the oral history. It seems like the actors had a great time working with him. The writer and producer did not, and the studio was not happy. There were disagreements about sort of the tone of the movie, the number of jokes, and the soundtrack. Like
They have
the
a
music.
joke count? Like there were not enough?
No, not like that, but maybe like you're emphasizing jokes over heart, that sort of thing.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I definitely think of this movie as equal in those departments. Okay,
Yeah,
so
I mean,
the soundtrack
that's
was...
what's good about it. So Mirkin wants more like college rock, more indie rock, alternative.
Okay.
Robin Schiff,
But they
who
aren't.
he kind of thought of them as that was his sort of idea of them. Well, like they're like cool, like sort of above the fray,
They're trendsetters.
cool girls. So they would like cooler music, but Robin Schiff wanted it to be more, 80s fair. She said the Go-Go's. That's what she wanted. And the movie studio wanted pop music. So they finished the movie. David Mirkin turns his cut of the film into the studio, and they go and do test screenings that go really poorly. And they get very unhappy with the movie, and they're threatening to cut it. And David Mirkin, who at this point is like very powerful after working on The Simpsons, running The Simpsons, says, if you cut this, I'm taking my name off of it, which is a very bad thing that can happen.
Cut
to
it,
a
not
movie.
like not get rid of it. Cut it in their own way.
Yes,
Make
edit
a
it.
different cut.
Yeah.
not the director's cut,
Right.
which turns out has meaning. That term.
It does.
It's not just another way to sell the same thing to somebody.
I mean, it can be.
I always assumed.
Certainly can be.
It's 5 minutes longer. Guess where the minutes are.
So, he leaves. His involvement with the movie is done, and the studio is saying like we might not release this at all, or might go straight to.
Hold up, that is terrifying. And I guess I should have known this already. But as a director, you just hand it over and hope they don't destroy it.
It just depends on
the contract.
It depends on the contract. Depends on where you are, how powerful you are. I mean, he's a powerful guy. It is surprising that he didn't have more control than this, but first time director making a movie for a relatively modest budgeted movie for Disney. Those are things you gotta work out ahead of time. So this movie could have not been released at all. It might have just been thrown away like so many HBO Max properties. But Robin Schiff and her producer Barry Kemp said, let us try to salvage this. They're given 2 weeks to put an edit together. They do. Is
that fast?
It is very fast, yes. They turn it into Disney. Disney's pretty happy with it. They're going to release it. They're not going to give it much of a marketing push. And then at the same time, David Mirkin's still threatening to not have his name on this movie. Will just go without a named director.
Has that ever happened before?
It's happened. Or maybe name somebody else as the director.
If that happens, is that a clear sign that there was some drama?
Trouble, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, probably the most famous example now is Rogue One, a Star Wars story.
Oh.
Where basically...
Did I like that?
You did. You don't remember it.
Got it.
So he's threatening to take his name off the movie. That'll be a bad sign. Probably hurt the movie. Hey, this movie, the director's too embarrassed to have his name on it. But they send him a print and they say, I think you're going to be happy with it. We didn't totally change. This is still your movie. This is still the movie you made. This is not like a mutilated corpse. So David Mirkin screens it for himself and his friend James L. Brooks, probably with the idea of like, hey, if we don't like this, you'll go swing your big, powerful dick around, right? Mm. Yeah. But they're like, oh, this is good. This is your movie. And he said, basically, the only reason my name is on the film is because nothing substantial was changed in the final edit. Yeah.
I see a note here that is some of the more quote unquote feminine scenes were cut.
That in Mirkin's cut,
are they shoving tampons up their noses?
The one that they pointed out was there's an early scene where they're getting dressed, and Romy, or maybe I don't remember which one, says like, I can't believe how cute I look in this outfit.
I made a helpful diagram here. This one
You're
is
pointing
Romy.
at both. Yeah, I know.
This one is Michele.
I know which one is which.
Is a high
I don't know who in the movie says this, but says, I can't believe how cute I look. And Mirkin is like, nah, we're going to cut that. Makes them seem like too self-obsessed, too complimentary of themselves. And then Robin Schiff, a woman, is like, women say this kind of thing about themselves. It shows the kind of friendship where they can say things like this to each other. So she restores it. That's the one that they pointed to.
Okay. Well, and I like that. I like that line.
Yeah. Basically, in that oral history, they're still mad at each other. They're still
who?
David Mirkin and Robin Schiff are still saying things like, yeah, Robin just doesn't understand. She doesn't get it. David wanted this. Whose side am I on? Who gives a shit?
Right.
All right. The other woman very responsible for Romy and Michele, Lisa Kudrow, because she originated the role of Michele. Who is Lisa Kudrow? We all know.
The person I got mistaken for twice, once at a Dollar Tree.
What? That's so weird.
Someone came up to me and asked. Yes. It was early 20s.
Are you Lisa Kudrow?
Yep.
What?
It happened twice. Can't remember
So improv and sketch comedian in the 80s. Like the rest of the cast of Friends, she was in a billion pilots in the early 90s that didn't go anywhere. And Friends was like the super team of failed pilot all-stars. She's on Mad About You and Cheers, and then Friends becomes a big hit in 94, and this is why Disney allows her to be in the movie. Because
did they have a thought for who would be? They just knew they wanted someone known for something.
They wanted a name because Robin Schiff is like, well, it's got to be Lisa Kudrow, and they're like, Lisa Kudrow, blah, who wants her? But then she's
Lisa
on this,
Kudrow,
exactly.
Okay,
but then she's on this big sitcom. okay, but they don't want to bring the other original Romy in because she's nobody. They want a movie star. This has got to be a big deal. So enter Mira Sorvino. Mira Sorvino, daughter of Paul Sorvino, who taught her everything she knows. I noticed both Kudrow and Mira Sorvino, they were aspiring academics, and they didn't get into acting until relatively late. They wanted to do
How late?
like, I don't know, 20s.
Okay. Right. Okay. They weren't kid star. They certainly seem to have a lot of experience, but it's later in life experience. They put in the work late.
Yeah, maybe.
How old was Lisa Kudrow when Friends began?
I can look
It doesn't
up.
matter. It doesn't matter. But having an actor dad that does kind of tell you that you would have started young.
Yeah. Well, she said she dabbled, but never seriously committed until she decided basically in her early 20s. She was pursuing a postdoctorate or something in Asia, like Asian political studies. She lived in China and worked in China for a long time. Very impressive person. And then she's in Quiz Show, and she's in Barcelona, and those get her a lot of acclaim, and that leads to the movie Mighty Aphrodite, the Woody Allen movie from 1995. You seen this movie?
Never even heard of it.
Okay, well, let me tell you, this is the official plot synopsis of Mighty Aphrodite.
Mira Sorvino fucks Woody Allen in the mouth, and they really up close
They make love, please. I'm supposed to be making love, Mira Sorvino.
They put the microphone inside of Woody Allen's mouth so I can hear every goddamn tongue action.
I thought you hadn't seen it.
Okay, so tell me what happened.
When Lenny, Woody Allen, and his wife Amanda, Helena Bonham Carter, adopt a
What?
baby. It is so.
What?
It is so weird. Okay. Yeah, she's not playing a witch or anything. Lenny
but her life
realizes
is scary, am I right?
they adopt a baby, and Lenny realizes his son is a genius and becomes obsessed with finding the boy's biological mother in hopes that she will be brilliant too. But when he learns that Max's mother is Linda Ash, Mira Sorvino, a kind-hearted prostitute and porn star, Lenny is determined to reform her immoral lifestyle.
It's like they always have to point out that a porn star is kind-hearted. Like the roles don't go together. You got to be a real dick to want to fuck other people.
This porn star's nice.
Right. Heart of gold prostitute? How?
This, yeah, so Mira Sorvino gets this big role. She wins the Oscar for Best Supporting Actress.
Oh, wow.
And it wasn't close. It was one of those well, she's obviously got to win.
What makes her role so complex? Like what?
Well, it's so weird. I saw this movie in college. I watched about half of it last night. There was certainly like a consensus, at least among people like me, that this was an Oscar win, sort of like Marissa Tomei and My Cousin Vinny. That was like,
right.
Well, those are bullshit Oscars. Those aren't serious performances. And it's dumb because like comedy is harder than drama.
It's so fast paced. And it's all about timing and delivery. And yes, it's hard.
So yeah, I kind of dismissed it. And then Mira Sorvino disappeared. I mean, seemingly off the face of the earth after that. And it was just like, well, yeah, she didn't have the goods. And really all I remembered about that movie was she speaks in a very weird voice. Let's hear this weird voice.
Let me show you something I just got. That. Isn't it a pisser? Oh, yeah, I got a great sense of humor. That's something you're going to find out about me. I'm funny and I can take a joke. A lot of people can't take a joke.
Yeah, so
wow.
She's talking like Pinocchio or
Michael Jackson or something. Yeah, but that does seem to be her method approach, because she also gave a voice to her Romy character where you could just talk.
What are you talking about?
No, Romy. Wait.
That was good.
Oh, okay.
Romy.
I just need a line. Line.
My
Michele.
blood tests will detect.
No. Michele, do you think it's impressive that I have a job? I can't do it. Anyway, yeah. I was like, is this her fucking voice and I've never noticed it?
Okay, well, but I'm sure everyone knows what actually happened to Mira Sorvino, which is her career got ruined by a horrible person, Harvey Weinstein. Who,
I actually didn't remember this because there's so many of them. So I was glad you.
I mean,
put
she
it
was
in your
like
notes.
one of the. I'd say her, Ashley Judd, and Gwyneth Paltrow were like the faces of.
Well, they were the face. Oh, okay, the faces. But I was gonna say also, Jawbreaker, help me.
Oh, Rose McGowan.
Rose
That's another one.
McGowan,
Yeah.
That's who I always think of.
Yeah. She also. Yeah.
It's
Okay.
like there's a 90s black hole and we accepted that women got sucked into it. And we're
That's
like,
the thing.
I guess they were just, not really committed. They're gone now.
And what happened with her is she just refused his advances.
Yeah.
And her career was like, she had like a rocket strapped to her back. Her career was exploding at the time. And then Harvey Weinstein ruined it. And she didn't know this at the time, which I didn't realize.
Didn't know she was blacklisted?
She did not know she was blacklisted.
Oh my God. So she went through the trauma of like auditioning and getting rejected over
Yes.
and over? That's disgusting.
And she said she didn't know why it was happening. It was hard for her. And eventually she made peace with it. She made peace with the idea, that like, hey, it just wasn't meant to be. And we're not totally in control, but hey, life is funny, isn't it? And then when she found out that this was not just random, that somebody was causing it to happen, she said she kind of spiraled a little bit from that. Like she was gratified to hear it, but
then you've got a new thing to focus on.
And it's got to be so weird to suddenly learn that like, oh, this thing that I thought was random was being determined by somebody.
That is creepy.
Yes.
Well, did she have any issues with Woody Allen?
No, she said, I listened to her interview with Mark Maron, and she said like he was good to her and she had a good experience. She was like as aware as anybody of the allegations.
Because this was later. This was by the. I mean, it's not the 70s and the 80s.
No, this is 95. The stuff with his adopted daughter who he married and the biological daughter who he was accused of abusing.
I always confuse that.
Yes, and that as we talked about many years ago in our Crimes and Misdemeanors episode, it helped him that people conflated these two things. Where one is a horrible crime that nobody would support. The other is like, oh, that's weird, but I don't want to be like a prude about it. Let's be more European and accepting. So Mira said, like, I was aware of that and I should have looked into it and taken it seriously, but I didn't. And she wrote like a big apology to
that's nice.
Dylan Farrow, a few years ago. So I mean, she did say like, it sucks that my early career is tainted by Woody Allen and Harvey Weinstein, and like I can't look back fondly on Mighty Aphrodite, my biggest success, because this is all anybody can think about, including me. And with the blacklist stuff, Peter Jackson came out and said in 2017, after all the Harvey Weinstein stuff broke, that because the Weinsteins were producing the Lord of the Rings movies. Before they eventually left, but it was in development for a long time. And Peter Jackson was going to cast Mira Sorvino and Ashley Judd. And then he was told by Harvey Weinstein, don't cast them, they're difficult. And he's like, okay, sure. And so he didn't cast them. And then, years later said, I realized I was being part of his, an unwitting part of his operation to punish people.
Would that be the Liv Tyler role?
I don't know it didn't say which role it was. And
they were both going to play that one person.
He wrote a public apology to her, and she talks very movingly about that on the Mark Maron episode.
Can I ask, who did break the news to her? Who did finally tell her, look, you're not getting this because you're blacklisted? Was it just the news of Harvey Weinstein, or? It
must have been. I mean, she didn't say,
she doesn't point to
this
anyone.
is literally how I found out. I think the Peter Jackson thing was okay, this is a concrete example. You could have been part of this huge franchise.
Right.
And you didn't, because I was explicitly told, not her. She's difficult. And she's like, I'm not difficult. And like, hey, I loved movies and Oscars and stuff. And I thought of Mira Sorvino as like one of those weird kind of obscure winners who then just disappears. And it's probably because, she wasn't that talented or whatever.
One hit wonder, sure.
Yeah. So these two ladies are cast. And David Mirkin said, like, it's very important. These people have been best friends forever. They have a language all their own. It's very important that the two actresses have a great chemistry, but they had never met each other. So they got 2 extra weeks of rehearsal to get to know each other.